nuns and missionaries. 30 had been killed before the soldiers arrived. The Lualaba River was a major barrier and held by the rebels until Major Mike Hoare's 5 commandos struck. To effect their own crossing with what heavy weapons they possessed, they had to hijack the rudimentary ferry. Instead of the rapid-action armoured battles that would soon be fought between Arabs and Israelis, these men prepared for a fast-moving infantry assault. Victims of the massacre were displayed to demonstrate the necessity of the mercenary action. Final Simba resistance near the airport was put down with air support. As pay was handed out, the basic was £180 a month, 4 times the average wage. Some of the mercenaries described the fighting and explained why they joined.
Well, I was at a loose end in South Africa at the time. I'm an immigrant to South Africa from East Africa, and the thought of sort of getting a bit of my own back here and fighting communism and general African nonsense, and I decided to come out.
It's nothing much. Most of not Congolese, they're rebels. When you really hit them, they run. They can't take what we've got.
Major Hoare was more phlegmatic.
Yes, we had little opposition at the ferry, and we disposed of the enemy quickly there. And apart from that, we were more concerned with keeping their heads down, getting the people away.
What sort of situation did you find them in at the mission?
Well, they were very happy. Very typically British. They just said they had been expecting us. Nice of us to come.
Specjalnoye Nazrania, the Soviet Spetsnaz. This largest of all special forces groups has in contrast been seen as specializing in moves to destabilize governments. They also grew from experiences in the Second World War, notably partisan raids on enemy supply columns deep behind the front line. Nowadays, Spetsnaz tactics still include sabotage and diversionary raids, but now they also target national leaders for assassination. Czechoslovakia saw the first public Spetsnaz action, with liberalism sweeping the country. Neutralizing Alexander Dubček's government in Prague became a priority tailor-made for their abilities. Antonov transports brought in a battalion of Spetsnaz at night, while the Czech capital went about its normal business. As late-night traffic continued, Spetsnaz groups seized the airport. Other units, which had infiltrated into the city during the previous week, seized key centers, the radio and television stations, newspaper offices, and telephone exchanges. The action prevented truthful information being broadcast for several vital hours. Citizens of Prague awoke to find their city under occupation. From bedroom windows, the first evidence of an armored invasion. With the airport secure, wave after wave of Antonov transports droned in with their cargoes of elite Soviet guardsmen. And by road, thousands of Warsaw-packed troops, men from East Germany, Poland and Bulgaria, as well as Russia, heading in from phony maneuvers on the Hungarian border. Armored units monitored key crossings as the morning rush hour built up. As the Soviet tanks poured in, Spetsnaz forces in their distinctive berets and striped jerseys under paratrooper uniforms mingled with the crowds. Others watched from vantage points. The crowds built up, responding to news broadcasts from clandestine Czech radio stations. Anger spilled over as the pirate radio stations broadcast news of the invasion withheld by state radio. People attacked tanks with whatever came to hand. In scenes that would be repeated 20 years later, Soviet troops fired into the crowd to try to restore order. But the Soviet stranglehold on the city was complete. The ordinary people made their protest and paid the price, but were unable to resist the invading superpower. A factory whistle signaled the only protest left: strike action. The one train that moved took the Czech leader and his reformist supporters to Moscow, victims of the Spetsnaz strike that had preempted any effective resistance. 20 years later, they were in action in the Soviet Union itself. Increasing demands for independence from the Baltic states annexed by Russia in 1940 led to confrontation with the Soviet authorities. In the Latvian capital Riga, that confrontation between Soviet special forces and police was particularly bloody. As in Prague, tanks and guards were quickly posted at key roads and major intersections. They occupied the state broadcasting station in a row over who owned the building. Far from silencing popular anger, the tempo of demonstrations only increased. And official anger at the pro-independence stance of the local police led to a firefight when Spetsnaz forces stormed their headquarters. People fled as parked cars exploded into flames, and a special forces jeep was also forced to run for cover. 4 people died in the hour-long gun battle, which ended in negotiation. But with Moscow torn between glasnost and a hardline response to calls for autonomy, Spetsnaz involvement seems certain to continue. Alongside the SAS to combat Spetsnaz-style sabotage attacks, Britain has raised the 10th Parachute Battalion. In exercises like Operation Brave Defender, they practice defending key installations like airports, an early target for Spetsnaz-type raids. Oh! Troops acting as would-be saboteurs allow them to show how such attacks should be foiled. In Kuwait, special forces rappelled into the American embassy compound to check for booby traps. The special forces' armed buggies passing by that secretly patrolled behind Iraqi lines. This monitor shows the embassy doors being blown open to neutralize any booby traps left there. The SAS performed similar tasks at the British embassy. In sharp contrast, the SAS still has a vital NATO role in the Arctic. Deep penetration patrols dig in to establish skillfully camouflage hides. From here, not only can enemy troop movements be monitored, but gunfire can be called in from warships out at sea.
Left 200, add 400.
Left 200, add 400. Over. Gun target line 102, ready 18. Out.
Fire.
Fire over.
And in operations like Anchor Express, new weapons like the SA-80 assault rifle can be proved. It's also a proving ground for the tactics of aggressive patrolling against any remaining threat from the east.